Tim is the Chief Instructor for the professional driving team Downforce. Welcome.
Hi Alastair, good to see you.
News, mate. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
We've spent a lot of time together over the years, on the track and so forth. What's the most common fault when you're getting to drive with blokes who have never been near a racetrack? What's the first mistake they make? What is it?
I think if you start saying when people are at a racetrack, there are two distinct things that we do at the racetrack. It could be race style training to go faster or safety training. When you talk about the safety side of things, probably the most important thing that we do at the moment is re-educate people on how to use all the electronic assistance systems in the cars. It's scary on New Zealand roads how few people genuinely have a feeling of what the car's doing. And cars are getting better these days. There are far less bad cars than in the old days.
Exactly.
So that's disguising for a lot of people just how little feeling they have for driving a car properly.
Braking. That's important under ABS, because I remember the early ABS systems, it was like standing on a live possum, it was squiggling under your foot. And a lot of people became scared of that. They'd, whoa, what's wrong? And they'd back off. They have to be taught, even today, even with the more modern technology and anti-lock brakes, to jump on them, right? And you can still steer. Now, you guys do quite a bit of that.
That's right.
On driver training days.
So the first thing you need to do is, before you even get in the car, understand what does your car have.
Yeah.
Do you have ABS braking? If you drive an old car, maybe you're in a car without any ABS brakes, no assistance at all. Then once you start adding in ABS, it gives you a much better chance of stopping. With the cars of today with ABS and electronic stability control, that's given you the best chance to brake and steer, which typically in the past was a big taboo, but to steer and steer away from trouble.
Now the Otago District Council, and you probably saw this the other night, has introduced a driver training scheme, and they're using Highlands Park, the motorsport headquarters down there. Now, it's a brilliant thing to do, simply because it gets all the testosterone and adrenaline under the young fellas when they can go out there in a controlled environment, nothing's coming at them, and learn how to throw a car around a bit, but still have the control, still appreciate exactly what the car can do. We've got Hampton Downs, the skid pan, that's part of it is the slipperiest in the world.
Yes.
Would you like to see, and you spend a lot of time there, would you like to see more use made of it? Okay, it's not cheap, but could there be a way around it to get a lot of young guys, young women out there just to learn a little bit more? It's not a right to drive, it's a privilege. It's not a right to drive well, it's a privilege.
It scares me relatively how easy it is to get a license in New Zealand. If you look to Germany, their version of the Automobile Association, the ADAC, they have nationwide driver training centres, and as part of your learner's licence and your learner training to become a licensed driver, you have to go through all sorts of training, even down to understanding tyres, because it's another thing for New Zealand. You think of how many cars are out there with shockingly bad tyres.
Space saver wheels on the motorway at 100 and...
You can have all the driving skills if you want, but especially in the wet, you hit a puddle and physics simply takes over, especially with bad tyres.
There's not enough emphasis on that, Tim, where you've got to allow 30% roughly extra braking distance when it's raining.
Exactly, that's with a good tyre.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's good that you brought up the German link.
The whole concept of their training is so much more advanced when you think that they have to understand tyres, they have to understand the car, but then they also go as far as putting them into situations to say, this is potentially how a car will react. You think of, there's a lot of people that think of just driving around a city. Think around the country. Kiwis are notorious for going away over summer to all these remote beach locations. You think of the gravel roads that Kiwis face. You think of the snow in the South Island and colder areas. For all the keen skiers out there, and there are a lot of very good drivers that have learnt over many years. The first few years especially, it's critical that people have a chance to learn to drive properly and actually feel what the car's doing.
We could pull our road toll way down. Really, we're a small population, and I think it's disproportionate too. Okay, it was better last year, but we've had some terrible years. I learned to drive on metal roads, mate. You learn quickly that the car's going to go round in circles.
Hey, you look at the Austrians, the Finnish and the Scandinavian drivers, because they spend half their life on slippery roads.
Indeed.
And I would argue that they've got some of the best feeling in car control that anyone would have just as a normal everyday road driver.
There's been some great guys come out of that part of the world.
That's where all your rally stars come from, isn't it?
Downforce.
Yes.
All right. Downforce, as in downforce, right? Aerodynamically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice little pun. There's a lot of Formula One sponsor mentions of us when you're watching a Grand Prix.
Really?
You think how many times they talk about Downforce every Formula One race?
Indeed. How long have you been Chief Instructor?
We've run Downforce since 2005. So around 10 years now.
Okay, all right. Now, your personal motorsport background, you've spent a lot of time in Germany. You've raced at the Nürburgring, haven't you?
Yes, 24 hours of Nürburgring I've done 4 times.
Really?
Fantastic race.
What were you driving?
Unlike anything you've ever seen.
Yeah,
so you imagine 210 cars start the race, about 2/3 of them finish the race, but you get 250,000 people there on a good year spectating.
There's no runoff, it's just a heavily wooded area, isn't it?
It's not as bad as the mountain at Bathurst, for example. So over the top of the hill at Bathurst, it's literally wall to wall.
Yep.
You've got 3 or 4 metres of grass typically at the Nürburgring, and then the fence. So there's not much.
It's undulating, corkscrewing.
Yeah. Your suspension's completely loaded, sometimes completely unloads over jumps. You literally, in one section, will often be all 4 wheels in the air, jumping over a little crest.
You didn't set the lap record, mate, like McLaren.
You want to see, there's a few people over there that, some of the race drivers that also test drive for manufacturers there, and they do thousands of laps per year.
Yeah. Have you driven round the wrong way at Bathurst?
Never.
I have.
I'd love to.
I have. You're going up Conrod Straight, climbing into the mountain, and then you get to a point where all you can see is sky.
Yeah.
You have absolutely no idea where you are.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, gee, you'd have to be good. Tim, thanks so much for coming in.
Alastair.
Absolute pleasure, mate.
Great to see you.
It was
Always
really
great
good
to see you, Alastair. Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment.